Let's rewind to when life was still what I'd call normal. Or at least, that's how I remember it now. My wife, Laura, and I had been married for over 10 years and life felt stable. We had our routines, our shared jokes, and that unexpressed comfort that comes from spending so many years together. Honestly, I thought we were genuinely happy. Or at least I was. Then Chloe moved in next door. You know that sensation when someone walks into a room and instantly alters the atmosphere? Like a spark igniting a fire. She possessed an energy that drew people in. With her blonde hair flowing freely and that effortless smile, she had this knack for making anyone feel like they were the most important person present. It wasn't long before she began hosting these small get-togethers, wine nights, weekend barbecues, and casual chats over the fence. Chloe was the kind of neighbor who always had her door wide open, inviting anyone who wanted to stop by. And trust me, people took her up on it. I won't lie. I found myself attracted to her from the very beginning. She had this unique ability to make you feel acknowledged, you know? It's not that I was unhappy with Laura, but it was hard to resist the allure of being around someone like Chloe. She would ask about my job, my hobbies, and genuinely seemed interested in my responses. It felt revitalizing. But don't get me wrong. At that time, I wasn't on the lookout for anything. I was still committed to Laura, even as her late nights at work began to stir my worries. That's when things began to shift with Laura. Initially, I chalked it up to work stress, longer hours, meetings that dragged on, and her coming home exhausted and disengaged. We all have our tough times, right? I'd try to ask her about her day, to spark a conversation, but it felt like I was speaking to a brick wall. Her eyes always seemed glazed over, glued to her phone, as if I wasn't even in the room. It started off subtle, but you begin to notice when your own wife appears more engaged with her phone than sharing her day with you. Chloe's gatherings became my little sanctuary. There was something so carefree about her, and those evenings felt like a much-needed break from the tension building at home. I'd swing by, have a drink or two, and chat with her and the other neighbors. Laura naturally had no interest in joining. If she wasn't working late, she'd claim she was too tired or needed to get up early the next day. More often than not, I found myself attending those gatherings alone, with Chloe's laughter echoing in my mind and her eyes lingering on mine just a moment longer than what you'd call friendly. It wasn't long before my best friend from college, Ethan, started teasing me about it. "You seem different, man," he'd say. Ethan and I had been through a lot together, so he knew me well. "I'm just saying, Chloe's got you all smiley. What's going on?" I'd brush off his comments, of course. I wasn't doing anything wrong, just seeking some fresh air, away from the suffocating silence that Laura brought home each night. Then there was Susan. Every neighborhood has a Susan, the well-meaning but nosy older lady who observes everything from her window. She'd catch me coming back from Chloe's and warn me with things like, "You be careful, Alex. That girl's trouble." Or, "Not everyone who smiles at you has good intentions." I'd laugh it off, but a part of me wondered if she had a point. What did it say about me that I was happier at my neighbors' gatherings than in my own living room? Then came the first real red flag. Laura began coming home later and later. It wasn't just the extended hours. It was her entire demeanor. She'd come in, looking worn out but satisfied. I could sense something was amiss, but I hesitated to probe further. When I did ask, she'd dismiss it with a shrug. "Work's just crazy right now," she'd say, tossing her purse aside and heading straight to the bedroom. Sometimes she wouldn't even glance my way. I made an effort, God knows I did, to be understanding. Work was demanding for her, no doubt. But there was this instinctive feeling, a nagging thought that told me something wasn't right. One night, Chloe threw one of her casual gatherings. This particular evening felt different, more intimate. I wandered over, and we ended up on her porch, just the two of us. The conversation flowed effortlessly. She leaned in, asking me about things Laura never bothered with, like my passion for hiking and my dreams of launching a small business one day. And she listened, truly listened. As the night progressed, she'd lightly touch my arm when she laughed, her eyes locking with mine in a way that sent butterflies fluttering in my stomach. "Alex," she said, flashing that playful smile of hers. "Ever feel like you're missing out on something? Like there's a whole world out there waiting for you to take that first step?" I laughed it off, pretending to be oblivious. I'm a married man, Chloe, I replied, though I wasn't entirely sure who I was trying to convince. Yeah, but are you happy? She retorted, her gaze penetrating right through me. That question lingered long after I left her porch that evening. Days turned into weeks, and things didn't improve with Laura. If anything, they deteriorated further. She was like a specter, barely acknowledging my presence, her phone permanently glued to her hand. And that gnawing feeling only intensified. I sensed something slipping between us, something elusive that I couldn't quite put my finger on. This wasn't the Laura I had married. So yes, I continued attending Chloe's gatherings. I craved that feeling of being acknowledged, of being listened to. And while it felt wrong, I couldn't resist. Chloe had become my confidant, and though we never crossed any physical boundaries, there was an undeniable tension between us, a silent what if hanging in the air. But everything was about to shift. Little did I know, my world was on the verge of being turned upside down by a woman who wasn't even my wife. Let's pick up from where I left off. After those gatherings with Chloe, life at home only deteriorated. The distance between Laura and me felt insurmountable, like a vast canyon that I had no clue how to bridge. I never anticipated that my gut feelings would soon morph in a stark reality. It all kicked off with a car, a sleek, shiny red sports car that caught the eye like a sore thumb in our neighborhood. So, when I spotted it pulling up to drop off Laura one evening, I couldn't help but take notice. It was a beauty, a convertible that made me wonder who could afford such a luxury. But my attention wasn't on the car. It was on Laura. As she stepped out, she looked different. She wasn't just fatigued from work. She almost seemed radiant, as if she had just experienced the best night of her life. I watched her share a few words with the driver, her smile broader than I'd seen in months. And then that car sped off into the distance like it was escaping something. I casually inquired about it, trying to sound relaxed. Hey, I saw you got a ride today. Nice wheels, who was that? She didn't hesitate in her response. Oh, just a taxi, she dismissed as if it was nothing. Yet, she wouldn't meet my gaze when she said it. I pressed just a bit further. A taxi? Seriously? Looked like a Ferrari or something. I chuckled, trying to keep it lighthearted. Some sort of special Uber? That's when she snapped. Not in an angry way, but with a sharpness that left a sting. It's just a car, Alex. Jesus. Can I take a cab without being interrogated? I decided to let it go for that night. What else could I do? I didn't have any proof, just that gnawing feeling in my gut. But once doubt sets in, everything becomes noticeable. It was like my eyes had been opened to all the little signs I had been overlooking. And as I observed her more closely, it felt like she was gradually drifting away. Then, that damn car began appearing everywhere. The same red sports car, always late at night, parked outside her office. It became a routine. Laura would text me around 6 or 7 p.m., claiming she was staying late to wrap up a project or whatever excuse she could conjure up. And like clockwork, that car would be there, its headlights illuminating the street like they were mocking me every time I passed by. I couldn't just sit back and let it slide anymore. So one night I decided to stick around. I parked a few blocks away from her office, and when I saw that red car pull up, my heart sank. My entire body felt like it was vibrating, adrenaline, fear, anger, all of it pounding in my chest. The driver stepped out, and I could hardly believe my eyes. It was Ryan, her boss, smooth, well-dressed, and his hair impeccably styled as if he had just stepped out of a cologne commercial. He wore this smug grin as he sauntered toward the entrance, and my stomach twisted in knots. I stayed put for a while, just observing. Sure enough, about an hour later, out they came, Ryan and Laura, walking side by side. From my vantage point, I couldn't catch every detail, but their body language spoke volumes. They were too close. Far too close for a boss and his hard-working employee. And the way Laura looked at him, I hadn't seen that expression in ages. When he leaned in and whispered something in her ear, she threw her head back and laughed, and I felt my grip on the steering wheel tighten until my knuckles turned white. It took everything in me not to jump out and confront them right then and there. But I held back. I needed confirmation. That's when I decided to start a journal. Sounds silly, right? Like something a teenager would do. But I didn't know what else to do. I had to make sense of the chaos swirling in my head, and writing it all down seemed like the only way to see the bigger picture. I began documenting every time she came home late, every excuse she offered, and every night that damn red sports car showed up at her office. And let me tell you, that journal filled up quickly. Laura was good at covering her tracks, I'll give her that. She acted as if everything was fine at home, like we were just another couple navigating the typical work-life struggles. But her phone, that was a different story. She started carrying it with her everywhere, as if it were a part of her. Shower? Phone's right there. Cooking dinner? Phone by her side. Hell, she even took it to bed with her, clutching it like it was a lifeline. And I noticed the password had changed. When did that happen? I had no idea, but it was just another thing that didn't sit right with me. Ethan, my best friend, could sense that something was off. He saw it in my words, the way I carried myself. Hell, even in how I stopped showing up for our usual Friday night get-togethers. "You all right, man?" he'd ask. And I'd lie like I always did. "Yeah, just busy with work." I'd reply, fully aware that work was the last thing on my mind. He didn't buy it, of course. Ethan never bought my excuses. But he didn't press, either. He just kept a watchful eye on me, silently assuring me he was there if I needed him. Things between me and Chloe didn't cool off, either. If anything, the tension intensified. She had this way of looking at me, like she could see right through my facade, like she understood exactly what I was going through without me having to utter a word. Maybe that's why I felt comfortable confiding in her about the red car, about the suspicions gnawing at me like acid. I half expected her to dismiss me, to tell me I was overreacting. But she didn't. Instead, she just nodded, as if she'd known all along that something was off. "Alex," she said, her voice low and serious, "you deserve to know the truth. Whatever it is, you deserve that much." I remember thinking how those words were like a lifeline, pulling me up from drowning in my doubts and fears. But that truth, it wasn't going to come easy. And as much as I believed I was ready for it, a part of me knew that whatever I discovered would change everything. At this point, it felt like I was leading a double life. One where I was just another married guy going through the motions, and another where I was this paranoid, obsessed detective trying to uncover whether my wife was actually cheating on me. And let me tell you, that messes with your mind. Every little thing starts to appear as a clue, and every moment feels like it's teetering on the brink of some enormous revelation. It's tough to pinpoint the exact moment I really realized, that Laura was gone, but I suppose it began when she completely stopped talking to me. Our evenings used to overflow with conversations about anything and everything, work, dreams, random musings about the day. Now, though, there was just silence. We could be in the same room, yet it felt as though we were separated by miles. I'd attempt to ask her about her day, throw in a joke, and she would merely nod absent-mindedly or mumble some half-hearted response, her gaze permanently fixated on that damn phone of hers. It was as if she didn't even notice me anymore, and that phone became a point of contention between us. It wasn't just that she guarded it like it held the secrets of the universe. Every glance at it reinforced the wall growing between us. When the password changed, I knew I had to take action. It wasn't about privacy, it was about trust, or rather, the glaring absence of it. One evening, Chloe hosted another one of her infamous gatherings. By that point, these little meetups felt like the only time I could catch my breath. Being around her was like escaping from my own bleak reality, and I craved that. So I went over, and for once, Laura decided to join me. I didn't think much of it. Perhaps she was feeling guilty or trying to put on a facade for the neighbors. Who knows? But the important thing was she was there, and so was that phone. I remember it as if it were yesterday. Laura was distracted, chatting with one of the neighbors while I lingered off to the side, nursing my drink. That's when I noticed it, her fingers flying across the screen, entering her new password. It was quick, just a few seconds, but I tried to etch that sequence into my memory. I thought I had it, but when I attempted it later that night, my mind went completely blank. All those numbers and motions blurred together like a fading nightmare. I cursed under my breath, knowing I had missed my chance. That's when desperation kicked in. I started watching her, not casually but intensely like some kind of stalker. Every time she pulled out that phone, my eyes zeroed in on her fingers, trying to decipher that damn code. But she was cautious, and the opportunity never presented itself again, at least not right away. Then one night, fate finally smiled upon me. It was late, and Laura had already gone to bed. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, replaying every worst-case scenario in my mind. And then, as if on cue, she turned over, her phone lighting up beside her. Half asleep, she picked it up, and I knew this was my moment. I turned away, feigning sleep, but kept one eye open, watching as she lazily entered the code. My heart raced with every tap and swipe, committing it all to memory. And that was it, the key to Pandora's box. I waited until she was sound asleep, her breathing deep and steady, before making my move. I understood that I had one shot at this. With trembling hands, I reached over, grabbed the phone, and entered the code. It unlocked, and I exhaled shakily, trying to brace myself for whatever lay ahead. The messages, God, those messages. They felt like a gut punch, as if my worst fears had taken physical form right before my eyes. They were all there, texts, voice notes, photos, all exchanged between Laura and Ryan. I remember reading the first message and hoping maybe it wasn't as bad as I feared. Perhaps I was misinterpreting things. But as I scrolled further, it became painfully clear. It was like peeling away the layers of a rotting onion, each layer more nauseating than the last. She shared everything with him. How she didn't love me anymore. How I was just some loser she felt trapped with. How she wished she had met him sooner to avoid all this misery. The most crushing part? The way they spoke about me like I was nothing more than a punchline. Ryan, with his arrogant swagger, labeling me pathetic, mocking my little routines and quirks. All those things I thought made our marriage unique. It felt like someone had torn out my insides and stomped all over them. Then I stumbled upon the invitation. A message from Laura to Ryan, inviting him to a party at our house. My house, where she wanted him to come over while I was at work. "Don't worry," she wrote. "He's gone all day. It'll just be you and me. Can't wait to finally be alone together." That line replayed in my mind like a broken record. She wanted him in our home, in our bed, with no remorse, no hesitation. I don't know how long I sat there, scrolling through those messages, feeling the ground crumble beneath me. A part of me wanted to wake her up right then and there, throw the phone in her face, and watch her squirm as she tried to justify her actions. But another part of me, I just felt numb. It was like I was outside my own body, watching a stranger's life unravel. Eventually, I returned the phone, crawled into bed, and stared at the ceiling until dawn broke. Everything felt different. The room, the bed, even the air I breathed. I knew that from that moment on, nothing would ever be the same. The morning after I went through Laura's phone, everything felt surreal. You ever have those dreams so vivid, so messed up, that you wake up questioning what was real? That's how it felt, except there was no waking up, no thank God, it was just a nightmare moment. Laura went about her morning as if everything were perfectly normal, preparing for work and barely glancing in my direction as she slipped out the door, her phone clutched tightly. And me? I was left there, feeling utterly empty. The betrayal lodged in my gut like a stone, rendering everything else insignificant. But I couldn't confront her. Not yet. Not until I figured out what the hell I was going to do. Chloe could sense that something was off. I must have looked like a complete wreck. Unshaven, dark circles under my eyes, shuffling around like a mindless zombie. One day, she spotted me outside as I was heading to my car. "Hey there, stranger," she called out, leaning against the fence that separated our yards. "You look like you've had better days. What's going on?" Before I even realized it, everything started spilling out. I hadn't intended to confide in her. Not really. But the concern in her eyes, the warmth of her voice, it was like a dam bursting. "Can we talk?" I blurted out, struggling to keep my gaze steady. I just need to get this off my chest." She nodded, her smile reassuring. "Of course. Come over tonight. We can have dinner, and you can share whatever's bothering you." That night felt like an unconventional therapy session. Chloe's home was cozy and intimate. Candles flickered on the dining table, Soft melodies filled the air. She had prepared pasta, the aroma of garlic and tomatoes wafting through the room as I tried to keep my composure. Once we sat down, wine glasses in hand, I unloaded everything. Laura, the messages, the car, the deception, all of it. Chloe listened, really listened, nodding with understanding, allowing me to pour my heart out without interruption. By the time I finished, I felt like I'd been hit by a freight train, yet there was a strange sense of relief, as if I had finally lifted a crushing burden. "That's incredible," Chloe finally said, her tone calm and steady. "Alex, I'm truly sorry. You don't deserve this." She reached across the table, her hand covering mine, and the warmth of her touch felt like a lifeline. "But you can't just sit back and take it. You need to take action." I nodded, but what could I actually do? I wasn't the type to yell or throw things. Confrontation wasn't my approach. "I really don't know what to do," I confessed, my voice trembling. "I feel so powerless. It's as if she's taken everything from me, and I can't even fight back." Chloe's expression shifted. I noticed a glint of something fierce and protective in her eyes. "Then fight back," she urged, her tone sharpening. "You need to strike where it hurts. Make them pay for what they've done." "Yeah? And how am I supposed to pull that off?" I scoffed, finishing my wine in one gulp. "She's out there living her best life, sneaking around behind my back like I'm invisible. What am I supposed to do?" That's when she leaned in, lowering her voice to a conspiratorial whisper. "Catch them in the act," she said. "Prove to everyone who they really are. Set up a hidden camera. Capture them in your own bedroom. And when you have that footage, well, let's just say people like Ryan and Laura don't hold their power when exposed for what they truly are." Her suggestion slammed into me like a brick wall. A hidden camera? It sounded ridiculous, like something out of a cheap thriller. But as insane as it sounded, there was a twisted rationale behind it. A way to reclaim control, to finally reveal Laura and Ryan's entire deception. "You really think that's the right move?" I asked, my voice barely above a murmur. Without hesitation, Chloe replied, "Absolutely. You have to show them they can't just walk all over you." We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of her suggestion settling heavily around us. Then something shifted. Maybe it was the wine, or perhaps the anger bubbling beneath the surface. But I leaned forward, my eyes locked onto hers. "Do you really believe this will work?" I pressed again, and she nodded, a faint smile curling her lips. "Trust me, Alex. It's time you started putting yourself first. And I'll support you, whatever you need." And that's how it unfolded. One minute, we were discussing revenge, and the next we were kissing, intensely, desperately, as if we were drowning and each other was our only breath of air. I knew it was wrong, but in that moment, it felt like the only right thing to do. I didn't think about the consequences, about Laura, or anything else, just how Chloe's hands felt on my skin, how she gazed at me, as if I were the only man in the world. We stumbled into the bedroom, shedding clothes and intertwining in a chaotic mess of limbs and breathless whispers. For the first time in what felt like forever, I felt alive. Afterward, as we lay enveloped in darkness, I came to a revelation, a truth I had been suppressing for far too long. I didn't love Laura anymore. Whatever affection I once harbored had been suffocated by her lies, her betrayal, the way she looked at me as if I were worthless. Lying there with Chloe, I realized there was no going back, no mending what had already shattered beyond repair. The following day, Chloe assisted me in acquiring the hidden camera. Together, we installed it in my own bedroom, aimed squarely at the bed where Laura and Ryan thought they could continue their affair unnoticed. As I stared at the lens reflecting back at me, I knew one thing for sure. The truth was coming for them, whether they were prepared or not. You might think I'd feel guilty for setting up a hidden camera in my own bedroom, like some sleazy private investigator from a B-movie. But the reality? I felt nothing but cold determination. Every fiber of my being screamed for justice. I wanted them to pay Laura, Ryan, the entire facade they had built right in front of me. And Chloe, she was my anchor, my partner in this dark endeavor, the one keeping me from unraveling. I remember standing beside her in my bedroom, gazing at that small hidden camera nestled among the books on the shelf, its unblinking lens pointed directly at our bed. "Are you ready?" she asked, and I nodded. There was no turning back now. The waiting, that was the hardest part. Days dragged on like molasses, and every moment felt like an eternity, knowing what awaited me when I finally accessed the footage. Then it happened just like clockwork. Laura texted me, claiming she'd be working late and that I shouldn't wait up. A phrase that once meant nothing now felt like a sledgehammer to my chest. But I played my role, just as she expected. I returned home, cooked myself dinner, plopped down on the couch, and waited for the show to begin. I remember the door creaking open, Laura's familiar laughter mingling with Ryan's low murmur. A wave of rage coursed through me as they strolled past, barely acknowledging my presence, as if I were a ghost haunting my own home. "We're just going to discuss some business in the bedroom," she said casually, as if I didn't already know the score. "Sure," I replied, my voice steady despite the disgust churning inside me. Just like that, they vanished into the bedroom, shutting the door behind them. Time dragged on painfully as I sat on the couch, pretending to be engrossed in a book, straining to catch any sound filtering through the walls. Soft laughter, rustling sheets. It was all the confirmation I needed that my plan had succeeded. Now all I had to do was wait. The following day, while Laura was at work, I retrieved the footage. My hands trembled as I plugged the camera into my laptop, fully aware of the gut-wrenching truth I was about to witness. And there it was, high-definition betrayal laid bare on the screen. I watched as my wife, the woman I'd loved and trusted for years, kissed her boss, stripping away every shred of clothing, dignity, and respect along the way. They didn't hold back or worry about being discreet. To them, I was merely an afterthought, a clueless husband too oblivious to see what was happening in his own home. Sickened and disgusted, I felt a twisted satisfaction in having proof. I had them caught red-handed, and now it was my turn to determine how this story would unfold. I wasn't going to let them off the hook. This was not how it was going to end. So I uploaded the video, anonymously of course, to a popular social media platform, sending it spiraling into the world like a virus. Within hours, it spread like wildfire. I watched as comments flooded in, strangers dissecting every frame, calling out Laura and Ryan for what they truly were. Some comments were merciless, but for once I felt no guilt. They deserved every ounce of shame and ridicule coming their way. And then the fallout began. Ryan was the first to get the call. I knew because I had made sure the video circulated through his office's internal network. There was no way it would stay quiet in a place like that. He was summoned for a meeting with the higher-ups, and from what I heard, he didn't handle it well. There were shouts, doors slamming, all the drama that came with having your affair broadcasted across the internet when you're in a position of power. Laura found out soon after. Initially, she couldn't believe it. "This has to be some sick joke, right?" she exclaimed, staring at her phone in disbelief as the video replayed over and over. But then, like a switch had flipped, her disbelief morphed into rage. "How dare you?" she screamed, her voice sharp and venomous. "How could you do this to me? You've ruined everything." I stood there, letting her words bounce off me like they were meaningless. "I ruined everything?" I asked, my tone calm, almost too calm. "You ruined it the moment you decided to sleep with Ryan." That was when the dam broke. She unleashed a torrent of accusations. Not just words, but a barrage of excuses and twisted justifications. "You were always so passive," she yelled, pacing like a caged animal. "You just let everything happen. You don't fight for anything." I couldn't live like that anymore. The irony of her outburst was almost laughable. Here she was berating me for being passive, while she was the one sneaking around, cheating on me with her boss. "I'll leave you for Ryan," she threatened, her voice cracking as tears threatened to spill. "At least he gets me. He makes me feel alive." That's when it hit me. I felt nothing. No sadness. No anger. Just a profound sense of relief. Relief that I no longer had to pretend, that I wouldn't have to fight for a woman who had no intention of ever fighting for me. "Good," I said, meeting her gaze with unwavering calmness. "Go to him. Because we're done, Laura. There's nothing left for us here." With those words, I walked out of the room, leaving her to grapple with the weight of everything she had shattered. The very next day, I filed for divorce. I expected to feel guilty, to have second thoughts about ending a marriage that had once meant everything to me. But as I signed those papers, all I felt was liberation, the kind that comes when you finally shed something that has been dragging you down for years. Laura begged, pleaded, and tried to negotiate her way out of it, but I was finished listening. She made her choice, and so did I. For the first time in a long while, I felt happy. And that happiness had nothing to do with revenge or payback. It was about reclaiming control over my life, rediscovering my own happiness, and leaving behind the toxic mess that was my marriage. And the best part? I didn't have to look back. While Laura and Ryan were left to pick up the wreckage of their lives, I was already moving forward, towards something new, something better. It's strange how quickly life can turn upside down. One day, you think you're living the perfect suburban dream, and the next everything is crumbling around you. But then, before you know it, you're rising from the ashes, discovering something better, something real. That's what it was like for me after Laura and I parted ways. It wasn't some fairy tale ending where everything magically falls into place, but it was real, and that's all I ever truly wanted. The fallout from the scandal was far more brutal than I had anticipated, at least for Laura and Ryan. I didn't feel a shred of sympathy for either of them. They brought this on themselves, plain and simple. Ryan lost his job almost immediately after the video went viral. I guess his company wasn't thrilled about one of their top executives being caught on camera in such a compromising position with an employee. And Laura? Well, her workplace wasn't exactly thrilled to discover that their model employee had been having an affair with her boss during work hours. Just like that, they both tumbled from their lofty perches, their seemingly perfect world crumbling around them. But that was their problem to sort out, not mine. For me, life felt lighter. I'd like to say I had a grand plan for my next steps, but the truth is, I didn't. All I knew was that I had to keep moving forward, and I certainly wasn't doing it alone. Chloe was there through everything. The chaos, the divorce, the hushed whispers from neighbors, and the awkward glances when I ventured outside. She was my anchor, my unwavering support, never flinching no matter how messy things became. I remember one night sitting on her porch, sipping wine as we watched the sun dip below the horizon. "What now?" I asked, my gaze fixed on the fading light. She shrugged, her easy smile illuminating the moment. "Now we start fresh. You deserve a new beginning, Alex." We both do. It was a simple truth, but it resonated deeply. We began discussing our future, a real future, one free from lies and betrayal. Chloe made me realize that I was entitled to happiness, to be with someone who genuinely cared for me. As much as I despise to admit it, Laura's betrayal served as the wake-up call I never knew I needed. A few times after the dust settled, Laura attempted to reach out. Phone calls, texts, even a handwritten letter, all filled with regret and apologies, claiming she missed me and wanted to talk things through. I didn't even bother reading most of it. Deep down, I knew it wasn't really about me. She didn't miss me. She missed the stability and safety net I had always provided. But that ship had sailed, and I was already too far gone to care. I didn't need her pity or excuses, nor did I want her back in my life. The divorce was finalized faster than I anticipated. We divided everything amicably. I didn't contest for the house or try to drain her financially. I didn't need to. I was already free, and that freedom held more value than any material possession we could have fought over. When the final papers arrived, a profound sense of closure washed over me, like a door slamming shut on a chapter of my life that I was more than ready to leave behind. Chloe and I began discussing a trip, an actual getaway to unwind and leave everything behind. A beach vacation sounded perfect. Sand, waves, and the scent of salt water. More importantly, the thought of being somewhere far away from memories, neighbors, and gossip felt like a breath of fresh air. "Let's do it," she said one night, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "Let's escape to the beach, just the two of us. No drama, no stress. Just us." It wasn't about running away. It was about starting anew. And that's precisely what we did. We packed our bags, booked a cozy beachfront rental, and set off to celebrate our fresh start. I remember standing on that beach, waves crashing against my feet, Chloe's hand intertwined with mine, reflecting on how far I'd come. I thought about the changes I had undergone, how much I had grown. It wasn't a fairy tale. Life is rarely that simple. But it was real, and it belonged to me. As for Laura, last I heard, she was struggling to find stable work, bouncing between temp positions while trying to piece her life back together. I felt no sympathy for her. She made her bed, and now she had to lie in it. She attempted to reconnect with me one last time, just before the divorce was finalized, claiming she needed closure and wanting to meet face to face. But I couldn't bring myself to do it. I couldn't sit across from her, pretending we could ever make things right again. I was done, and nothing she could say would ever change that. Ryan? He vanished. Quit his job, sold his car, probably relocated to another city in search of a fresh start. It was pathetic, really, how swiftly he fell apart once everything came crashing down. And Laura, of course, was left to sift through the wreckage, attempting to figure out how to pick up the pieces. But like I said, that wasn't my issue anymore. The beach trip with Chloe was exactly what I needed, a chance to breathe, to release the past, to begin anew. We spent our days lounging in the sun, swimming in the ocean, chatting about everything and nothing at all. With each passing day, I felt more and more like my old self, the Alex I used to be before the lies, betrayal, and pain invaded my life. Looking back on everything, it's easy to say I should have seen the signs, that I should have done things differently. But the truth is, I don't regret any of it. Not anymore. Because in the end, that betrayal forced me to confront reality. It broke me, yes, but it also rebuilt me, strengthening me in ways I never anticipated. That's a lesson I'll carry with me for the rest of my life. Chloe and I, we're doing well, really well. I'm not claiming it's perfect, because nothing ever is, but it's honest. That honesty, that openness, is worth more than any picture-perfect marriage ever could be. We're planning to travel more, explore the world, and embrace the kind of life I always dreamed of but never thought I could achieve. So, yes, Laura is gone, and Ryan is merely a ghost from my past. I'm still standing, stronger than ever, ready for whatever life throws my way. Because in the end, that's what it's all about. Moving forward, no matter what, and finding peace amid the chaos. And for the first time in a long time, I'm at peace.